The Madras High Court has dealt a major blow to online gaming firms by upholding Tamil Nadu's strict regulations on real money online games. The court dismissed industry petitions and affirmed the state's authority to regulate gaming in the interest of public health, citing the risks of addiction, financial loss and suicides linked to excessive gaming. Key provisions upheld include mandatory Aadhaar-based KYC and a blank hour ban prohibiting online gaming from midnight to 5 a.m. The court also ruled that the right to privacy is not absolute and can be reasonably restricted to protect citizens' health and well-being, setting a precedent for similar regulations in other states. Now, we're going to unpack the implications tonight of this ruling with Shivani Jha, founder of EPWA, and Abhishek Rastogi, lawyer and founder of Rastogi Chambers. But before I come to my guests, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'd like to show you viewers a short report of what happened in the High Court today.
In a bold strike against unchecked online gaming, the Madras High Court has upheld Tamil Nadu's stringent regulations on real money games, dealing a crushing blow to gaming companies. The court reaffirmed the state's authority to curb such activities under the banner of public health, dismissing industry pleas as it endorsed a midnight to 5 a.m. blank hour ban to shield citizens from gaming addiction's grip. Further tightening the reins, the ruling mandates Aadhaar-based OTP verification to ensure only adults participate, aiming to safeguard vulnerable players. But here are two sides of the case. The Tamil Nadu government introduced these regulations through the Tamil Nadu Online Gaming Authority to address concerns over gaming addiction, financial losses, and mental health impacts, particularly among youth. The state argued that real money gaming, often involving chance-based elements, poses risks to mental health and financial stability, justifying restrictions under its public health mandate. But gaming companies, on the other hand, argue that these restrictions infringe on the right to trade and are overly restrictive. They contended that skill-based games should be distinguished from gambling. However, the court rejected these pleas, affirming the state's regulatory power.
In a major setback to online gaming companies and a big victory for the Tamil Nadu government, the Madras High Court has dismissed a plea by the online gaming companies asking for a direction to strike down the new set of restrictions on online gaming imposed by the Tamil Nadu government. At least 74 people have lost their lives by suicide because they had lost huge sums of hard-earned money through these online games. In fact, the Tamil Nadu government had constituted a committee under a former High Court judge on whose recommendations these changes were brought about.
Now, this decision may not just fuel debates on balancing innovation in the gaming industry with public welfare, but inspire other Indian states to adopt similar measures.
Absolutely, the Madras High Court coming down, and this is not the first time that we're seeing the focus coming on online gaming. Let me quickly bring in my panelists this evening. I have Shivani Jha, founder of EPWA, and Abhishek Rastogi, lawyer and founder of Rastogi Chambers. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. We're hearing some pretty harsh judgments coming in there from the Madras High Court. Abhishek, what are the legal grounds for the state to regulate online gaming under the guise of public health, and how might this be challenged? Also, for me and for our viewers, could you also explain the aspect of public health? Because that term was made, and I think it's the first time that we've heard something like this. We're seeing hearings going on in the Supreme Court as well, made in today's hearing.
So it is very clear that there are several constitutional rights and fundamental rights which are there under the provisions of the Constitution of India. But as far as the gambling is concerned, it's a state subject. And as far as these rights are concerned, these rights can always be restricted. Now, when we look at this decision of the High Court, I think it's a very pragmatic decision and a welcome move, and for several reasons. See, the vision of the Prime Minister of India is to make India a gaming hub. But a lot of gaming companies and betting companies or gambling companies have taken that vision in a wrong perspective. the vision is never to make India a gambling hub. And we need to understand that aspect. Today, when we talk about the game of skill versus game of chance, there are actual evidences, and we are dealing with a lot of criminal matters also, criminal complaints, etc., where a lot of these issues from suicides to bankruptcies, etc., which are coming up. A lot of these matters are now coming up, and it is high time for the judicial system, for the legislatures to intervene and to create a distinction between game of skills versus game of chance, between gambling and entertainment. What the vision was initially when encouragement was given to these sectors was that we would want to encourage this as a form of entertainment. But now if that entertainment is getting converted into a sort of gambling and betting, then I think this will have a lot of socio-economic impacts and effects. The vision or the endeavor was never to make India into a gambling hub. But what is being seen is that through these apps, online betting apps, and a lot of these apps which are related to sports also, the amounts which are involved are much higher than the threshold which is there for entertainment. There are no limits. So in terms of who is playing that, what is the age factor, what is the income bracket, how much you could gamble or bet in a day, all those factors are very, very relevant because out of millions of person, one person may win huge amount, but
Right.
there'll be thousands and millions of others who would lose. So I think from that perspective, the matter which was heard before the High Court has taken into cognizance this factor. And when we were arguing in Supreme Court, the aspect there, what we were arguing in Supreme Court is more related to the tax element of it, whether the tax
Sure.
cumulatively collected on this could be more than the revenue. But I think at some stage, even the Supreme Court could not conclude, because I think, to the best of my understanding, Supreme Court also wants to get into those socio-economic aspects, because at some stage, our society, our values, our ethics, and how you would want to see the youth being involved in this
Right.
has a lot of relevance. So I think from that perspective, this decision is a very, very welcome decision, and all these states will have to implement these regulations,
Okay.
in a very pragmatic way.
Okay, so Shivani, do you now then believe that there's a way to balance public health concerns with the rights of gamers and the industry, and what might that potentially look like? Shivani, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. And without turning this into a debate of sorts, so EPWA represents a collective of online gamers in the country. And EPWA was also one of the petitioners in Tamil Nadu High Court. We've previously tried to work with Tamil Nadu Gaming Authority in sending them representations on their primary aim was to bring up laws which will protect users. And as Abhishek rightly said, there is a real concern for protecting users. However, what such blanket bans does is, and there's a list of 7-8 regulations, and while certain things are of obvious concern to players, for example, nobody under 18 can participate, or gambling is anyway a banned activity. Anyone who's gambling can be put behind the bars for 3 months, and there is a penalty around it. But the idea about behind these regulations was to protect players. Now, what happens with these blanket bans, especially in states which has a huge number of professional online gamers, is that the obvious switch to fly-by-night operators or gambling platforms from online gaming platforms. And that sort of brings us back to Abhishek's concern also, which is how deeply online gambling is being placed within the ecosystem of gaming. From that perspective, these regulations were probably not giving the players enough, and that's perhaps the reason why they have challenged it, or it does bother them primarily because there are national champions, or there are World Poker Series champions, there are chess grandmasters, international masters who are members of EPWA. Their timing of practice may range from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m., maybe 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. The problem with such blanket bans, which is what has happened in Tamil Nadu right now, is the professional opportunities that people were getting through online gaming get sort of snatched just because they're in Tamil Nadu. And if
Right.
this were to probably, translate as a precedent to other states, it might just be a terrible precedent because we can't control the hours of tournaments. We can't control hours of international competitions. We can't control the hours you and I work.
Correct.
And it's a livelihood for almost 50 lakh gamers right now. So then it becomes a sketchy situation where while the intent was to regulate gaming, it's again becoming a gambling situation, which is anyway banned. So Tamil Nadu was not adjudicating skill or chance. They were just adjudicating a blanket ban on all online games which require any kind of participation fee.
So
That's the problem here.
So Shivani, I appreciate that you've actually made this segregation and clarified that on air. But if I were to ask you as a follow-up question, how might these regulations then affect the broader online gaming ecosystem? Like you said, 50 lakh people, including skill-based and casual gamers.
So, see, there are two direct impacts to this. One is obviously for a lot of marquee professional players, they might change states. I know people who have moved to other states because they want to continue to be a part of their profession in a legal way. It's very easy to download VPN and play and, bypass these laws, but then they become a criminal on another end. The other is obviously an impact to gaming companies, but they still get to operate for the next, 19 hours. It's the players who are unable to choose the hours that they're playing at. And this eventually leads to their shift to gambling platforms, which is the primary concern to bring up these regulations.
We're also seeing that, this could be adopted by other states as well. And at the rate that I think gaming is growing, while it also, presents a lot of opportunities, there are some challenges, there are some threats as well. So what kind of challenges and opportunities could arise for regulators and gaming companies as similar laws are considered in other states?
Sorry, is that question to me or to her?
Yes, it's to you.
So I think one very important aspect is that we must have a unified code throughout the country. As she also mentioned that, players may go and move on to other states, which would not be a good thing because a particular state being too harsh may lead to some manifestly arbitrary results. So I think as a country, we need to have some uniform code for gaming so that these principles which are in the unified code are followed by all of these states. That is the basic bare minimum if you want to, increase the participation in this sector. That is one. Now, you asked the question about the public health. And please note that as far as public health is concerned, it is the responsibility of the state as per the Indian Constitution. And we cannot today deviate for few players. See, today online gaming or gambling may happen, right? And there are millions of people who are participating in this. But how many out of those millions are actual players who are participating in international competition? Would be handful, right? Probably a couple of dozens. And the amount of suicides which have happened in a particular state, which was, today under discussion, there are about 70 suicides which have happened because of all of this nuisance. So I think what is most important is that the principles which are enshrined in the Indian Constitution related to public health will have to be given priority. If there are rules of the land which need to be followed, they have to be followed. The players can very well practice during the day. What is wrong in that? And till the time it is not gambling, the situation will have to be different. The moment there are these elements of gambling which are based on chance, the moment there are these elements of risks based on chance is concerned, the moment it is beyond entertainment and leads to betting and gambling, I don't see the vision was ever to make India a gambling and betting hub. And if that happens, then I think it's a very sorry state. And that's why we feel, even as professionals, even when we are representing, gaming companies or whatever, this form has to come so that, the public health issue is addressed.
Right.
There are these societal tendencies which are getting developed, especially in youth. So many matters are coming to us where students have committed suicide because of these. I think that is very, very relevant. You may keep on arguing that the sector generates employment, but we'll have to weigh at what cost. So I think these are important aspects which were there before the High Court.
Right.
These aspects will also have to be considered by the Supreme Court. When we were arguing these matters on taxation before the Supreme Court, the element which came before the Supreme Court and where there is a PIL which has been filed is also on the socio-economic aspect.
Okay.
So those all will have to be
have to be
weighed.
considered. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm completely out of time, but excellent points and very, very comprehensive insight by the both of you. Thank you so much to Shivani and to Abhishek for joining me this evening. It goes to be seen now how this hearing actually not just plays out in the other states, but we're also looking at the hearing that's taking place in the Supreme Court.